Picture this. You just got a promotion at work. Your salary increased by $20,000. You feel financially secure for the first time in years. So naturally, you decide to reward yourself with something you've always wanted. A newer car, nothing too crazy, just a reliable Honda Civic that's 5 years old. Seems reasonable, right? After all, you can afford the monthly payments now, but here's what nobody told you. That single decision just became one of the most expensive mistakes of your financial life. Not because the car itself is evil or wildly overpriced, but because of something far more insidious, something hiding in plain sight that most people never calculate, something that will quietly drain your wealth for decades without you even realizing it. We live in a culture where your car becomes a statement about who you are. Drive up to a restaurant in a luxury vehicle, and people assume you're successful. Show up in an older model, and suddenly you're judged differently. This psychological pressure pushes millions of people into financial decisions that seem smart on the surface, but quietly destroy their long-term wealth-building potential. I'm Tim. I help people understand money so they can stop working for their purchases and start making their purchases work for them. If you've ever felt stuck because of your car payment, this video is for you. The average American household spends money on 5 major categories. Housing takes the biggest chunk, followed by transportation, taxes, food, and utilities. Most financial advice focuses on cutting your coffee habit or reducing your streaming subscriptions. Meanwhile, the real wealth killer sits right in your driveway, depreciating every single day. Transportation costs vary dramatically from person to person, which is exactly why this expense flies under the radar. Your neighbor might spend $300 per month on their car, while you spend $800. Both of you think you're being reasonable because you're not comparing apples to apples. But here's the shocking truth. For many people, car ownership has quietly become one of the biggest barriers to building wealth. Consider what happened in recent years. Used car prices jumped dramatically, with some years seeing double-digit percentage increases. At one point, nearly 16% of people financing new cars committed to monthly payments exceeding $1,000. That's more than some people pay in rent. Dealer markups on popular models sometimes rival the value of the vehicle options themselves, but the monthly payment is just the tip of the iceberg. According to automotive research, the true cost of owning and operating a vehicle often averages over $10,000 per year. Let that number settle in your mind. $10,000 every single year. For many Americans, that represents close to 20% of their gross income dedicated to transportation alone. Most people focus on the monthly payment when buying a car. They negotiate the price, secure financing, and drive off the lot feeling proud of their purchase. But they never calculate the total cost of ownership. They don't account for depreciation, insurance, fuel, maintenance, repairs, registration fees, and all the hidden costs that accumulate over time. Let me show you how this works using a real pattern, not a luxury car horror story. A 5-year-old Honda Civic, one of the most economical cars you can buy, can easily cost around $40,000+ to own over 5 years once you add everything up. That breaks down to almost $9,000 annually. Remember, this is for a used economy car, not some 6-figure exotic. Depreciation represents the largest expense category. 99% of vehicles lose value over time as they experience wear, tear, and technological obsolescence. The moment you purchase a car, you're putting money into an asset that's almost guaranteed to be worth less every year you own it. This is fundamentally different from many types of real estate, which at least have the potential to appreciate over time. Most financial damage happens when people buy new cars. The second you drive a new vehicle off the dealer lot, it becomes used and can immediately lose 10 to 15% of its value. That's thousands of dollars vanishing in a single afternoon. Different cars depreciate at different rates, but the pattern remains consistent across almost all models. Fast losses up front, slower losses later. That's why one of the smartest strategies is buying used cars in the 3 to 5 year range. At this point, much of the brutal early depreciation has already occurred, but the vehicle remains modern and reliable enough to avoid most major maintenance issues. Look for cars with roughly 30 to 40,000 miles. This sweet spot maximizes value while minimizing depreciation losses. Then there are taxes and registration fees. Every car owner pays annual registration fees, inspection costs, and various government charges. Families with multiple vehicles multiply these costs unnecessarily. Some households own 3 or 4 cars when 2 would work perfectly. Each additional vehicle quietly adds hundreds of dollars in fees annually, on top of everything else. Financing costs create another wealth drain. Few people can afford to purchase cars outright with cash, so they finance the purchase with loans. Current interest rates for car loans often range from mid-single digits upward for buyers with good credit. Poor credit scores push rates even higher. Over several years, these interest payments add thousands to the total cost of ownership. Think about the psychology here. Someone might celebrate securing a monthly payment of $500, forgetting that fuel costs another $200 monthly. Insurance adds another $150, maintenance and repairs contribute more. Suddenly, that $500 payment becomes nearly $1,000 in total monthly transportation costs without them ever consciously deciding to spend that much. Fuel expenses accumulate relentlessly. Even an efficient car can burn through tens of thousands of dollars in fuel costs over a decade of ownership if you drive a typical 15,000 miles per year. That's hundreds of dollars monthly just for gasoline or charging. These costs increase every time fuel prices rise, which happens frequently. You can minimize fuel costs by shopping at membership warehouses like Costco, where gasoline typically costs a bit less per gallon. Over time, these small savings accumulate meaningfully. Electric vehicles offer another solution, though their higher purchase prices and charging infrastructure mean the math isn't automatically better for everyone. You still have to run the numbers for your situation. Insurance premiums add another huge line item. For our Honda Civic example, it's not unusual to see nearly $7,000 in insurance over 5 years. That's roughly $115 monthly, more in some states, less in others. Here's a strategy most people never consider. Mark your calendar annually to review your insurance coverage. Call your current provider and request better rates. If they can't accommodate your request, shop around with competitors. Insurance companies know acquiring new customers is expensive, so they're often willing to offer competitive rates to steal business from rivals. Call several companies and compare quotes for identical coverage. You might discover savings of $50 to $100 every month. Over 10 years, that's real money. This shop around strategy works for other recurring expenses too. Cable internet, cell phone plans, and utility services often have promotional rates for new customers. Call annually and request these promotional prices. If they refuse, be willing to switch providers. Many companies have retention departments specifically designed to prevent customers from leaving by offering better deals. Maintenance and repair costs represent the final major expense category. These costs can be hard to reduce unless you possess mechanical knowledge and skills. However, modern technology makes basic maintenance more accessible than ever before. YouTube tutorials can teach you fundamental skills like changing oil, replacing air filters, swapping wiper blades, and performing basic maintenance. Consider the mathematics of learning basic car maintenance. Oil changes at shops often cost $100 to $150 when you include labor and materials. Cars need oil changes every several thousand miles. Someone driving 15,000 miles annually might need 3 to 5 oil changes each year. Imagine you're 30 years old and plan to drive until age 75. That's 45 years of oil changes. Even if you only perform half of these yourself, you could save thousands in labor costs over your lifetime by investing a small amount of time to learn this basic skill, or at least enough to know when you're being overcharged. When your check engine light activates, visit auto parts stores like AutoZone or similar chains that offer free diagnostic scans instead of rushing directly to an expensive dealership. These stores use diagnostic tools to identify problems, allowing you to make more informed decisions about repairs. Sometimes the issue is minor, like a loose gas cap, which you can fix yourself in seconds. Many people panic when warning lights appear and assume the worst-case scenario. I've seen people avoid driving their car for an entire week after the check engine light comes on, fearing catastrophic damage. Then they finally go in and learn it was a simple, cheap fix. The point isn't to become your own full-time mechanic, it's to avoid being a financially helpless passenger in your own life. Let me add a real-world angle here. I recently read a comment from someone driving a more than 20-year-old van. Every year they spend a few $100s on repairs, but that van helped them pay off their house because they never had a car payment. They said the van reminds them every day that their possessions don't determine their value as a person. That's the opposite of how car culture usually works. Here's the most radical strategy. Consider whether you actually need a car at all, or whether your household needs fewer cars. This isn't feasible for everyone, but it's worth exploring. If you could eliminate car ownership entirely, you might save close to $10,000 annually. Instead of spending that money on transportation, you could invest it. Imagine taking $10,000 in 2018 and investing it in a broad stock market index fund instead of pouring it into a vehicle. Over the next 5 years, that investment might have grown significantly. Even with normal market ups and downs, the opportunity cost of car ownership extends beyond direct expenses. It includes all the potential gains from investing that money elsewhere. Geographic arbitrage offers another approach. Many people commute significant distances to work, creating excessive transportation costs through fuel, maintenance, and depreciation. If living closer to work increases your rent by $200 monthly but eliminates a long commute, the math often favors the higher rent. Long commutes impose hidden costs beyond fuel and vehicle wear. They consume hours of your life daily, create stress, and reduce your quality of life. Some people drive 45 minutes to an hour each direction for work. That's nearly 2 hours daily spent in traffic, plus fuel costs, plus wear on your vehicle. The total cost often exceeds the savings from living farther from work. I've seen comments from people who simply moved closer to work or chose jobs they could walk or bike to, and that single decision transformed their finances more than any budgeting app ever did. When job searching, consider transportation costs as part of your compensation package. A job that pays $5,000 less but eliminates a lengthy commute might leave you financially ahead when you account for reduced transportation expenses, less stress, and more free time. The psychology of car ownership reveals fascinating patterns. Society conditions us to view expensive cars as success symbols. Social media amplifies this pressure by showcasing luxury vehicles as lifestyle aspirations. Friends congratulate each other on new car purchases without considering the financial implications, but wealthy people often think differently about transportation. Many millionaires drive modest, reliable vehicles and invest the difference in appreciating assets. They understand that cars serve a functional purpose rather than defining their identity or social status. Current market conditions make car ownership even more expensive. Interest rates have increased, making financing more costly. Supply chain disruptions have inflated vehicle prices across many categories. Dealer markups on popular models can wipe out any sense of getting a deal. These conditions create opportunities for people willing to think differently. Instead of competing for overpriced vehicles, consider alternative transportation methods where possible. Ride-sharing services, public transportation, bicycles, and walking can reduce or eliminate transportation costs in many situations, especially if you live in an urban area. For unavoidable car ownership, optimize your approach. Buy used vehicles in the depreciation sweet spot. Maintain them properly to extend their lifespan. Shop for insurance annually. Learn just enough maintenance to avoid being taken advantage of. Plan your housing, work, and lifestyle choices with transportation costs in mind, not as an afterthought. The wealth-building implications extend far beyond transportation costs. Every dollar spent on excessive car expenses represents a dollar not invested in appreciating assets. Over decades, these opportunity costs compound dramatically through the power of compound interest. Someone who spends an extra $200 monthly on transportation compared to a more economical approach loses over $2,400 annually. Invested at historical market returns over 30 or 40 years, this money can grow to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Here's the key mindset shift. The most successful wealth builders optimize their major expense categories before worrying about minor expenses. Transportation is one of the largest controllable expenses for most households. Small improvements in how you handle your car decisions create major long-term financial benefits. Start by calculating your true transportation costs. Include everything: monthly payments, insurance, fuel, maintenance, repairs, registration fees, parking, and a realistic estimate of depreciation. Most people underestimate these costs because they never add up all the components. The total often shocks people who thought they were being financially responsible. Next, explore specific ways to reduce these costs. Could you drive your current car for 5 more years instead of upgrading? Could you buy a more modest used vehicle next time? Could your household go from 2 cars to 1? Could you move closer to work or work remotely more often? Could you learn basic maintenance skills or find a trustworthy independent mechanic? Could you shop your insurance every year? Finally, and this is the crucial step, invest the savings. Don't let reduced transportation costs disappear into lifestyle inflation. Direct every dollar saved into investments that can grow over time. That's how you transform just a car decision into a serious wealth-building accelerator. The hidden transportation trap destroys more wealth than almost any other single expense category for many Americans. Unlike housing, which can at least sometimes appreciate in value, cars are pure consumption. They provide utility, but they destroy financial capital. Breaking free from this trap means challenging the story you've been sold about cars and success. It means making transportation decisions based on math, not ego. It means prioritizing long-term freedom over short-term status. If you treat your car as a tool, minimize your fixed transportation costs, and invest the difference consistently, Your future self will feel the impact in a very real way. Your transportation choices today help decide your financial options tomorrow. Choose wisely. And instead of watching your wealth roll down the highway, you'll watch it compound quietly in the background, working for you, not against you. And if you want more videos that help you spot these silent wealth killers and build real freedom instead, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We're just getting started.